Hey CMA buddies, let's today start with the last chapter of module 10, and this module will be talking about something called as goal congruence, right? So this is 10.6 we are going to cover, and rather we will finish module 10 today, right? So what exactly is goal congruence? Congruence means what? Coming together, alright, or rather alignment of something that comes together for the ultimate purpose. Here in this case is basically the profit of the organization or the attainment of the objectives of the organization, right? That's what we will be talking about. So let's understand what exactly is goal congruence. It says that term used to describe the situation when the goals of different interest groups coincide, right? So when there are different interest groups, when they come together and their goals are different but they coincide, that means they work for a common purpose. In that case it is called as a goal congruence. Now goal congruence is relevant in order to increase the profitability of the organization and to achieve its goals. So two basic ideas of goal congruence is that the different groups that come together will be basically to attain the profitability of the organization. That's the first part of it. And second part of goal congruence is it would help to achieve the goals of the organization. So first part is profitability and the second part is the attainment of the goals. It is essential that individual goals are in line with the organizational goals, right? So basic interest groups that we are talking about here is either the individuals and the second one is the organization. So when both of their goals come together for the attainment of the profitability and for the attainment of goals, it is called as a goal congruence, right? I guess now you can understand what exactly is goal congruence. In a perfect organization, individual goals and organizational goals correspond perfectly, right? So when they correspond perfectly, that is both the individual goal and the organizational goal, then it becomes a perfect organization, right? One way to achieve goal congruence between shareholders and managers is by designing remuneration packages, that is the salary packages for managers, that would motivate managers to take decisions which are consistent with the objectives of the shareholders. So the salary structure or the remuneration package of the manager should be designed in such a way that basically it motivates them and they ultimately are able to attain the objectives of the shareholders. So that's how the goal congruence concept work, right? I hope you understand this. Now if you just look at this diagram, you would be able to understand in a better way. So how to align individual and organizational goals for optimal performance. Basically the individual goals, that is alignment for motivation and satisfaction, comes hand in hand with what? Organizational goals, which talks about the profitability and the success. Success here refers to the attainment of the organizational goals. So this is the basic funda of goal congruence, right? Now there is something called as agency theory. If you have been through if you have done the foundation course of CMA, most of you would be knowing what exactly is agency theory. Even in your class 11th and 12th there would be a chapter on that, but just to touch upon what exactly is agency theory in brief, I'll tell you what it is exactly. Basically it's a concept of agents and principals. So there are two people or two set of groups. One is called as agents and the second one is called as the principal, right? Now how do we define agency theory? It simply says it's a relationship between the principal. Basically the principal relies on agent for what? For the execution of certain business and financial transactions on their behalf, as in the agent will be acting on the behalf of the principal without regard for agent self-interest. So your concentration will never be on the agent self-interest. Your idea is basically to serve principal. Simple example of agency theory with respect to agents and principal is that of an organization and its employees. So here the principal is the organization and the employees are its agents, right? It's as simple as that. So basically what agency theory says is it is basically a relationship between the principals and the agents. Here the principal relies or he basically depends on the agent for the execution of various business and financial transactions on their behalf. Whose behalf? Principal's behalf, without regard for the agent's self-interest. So agent will not be concentrating on the self-interest. That means he should not take the undue advantage of the powers or the basically the kind of access that he has to different resources. He would be working only in the best interest of the principal. Eventually he would be rewarded for that, right? So that is what is agency theory all about. Now let's understand this with perspective to goal congruence, right? Our idea is to learn about goal congruence in this chapter. So now we know what exactly is an agency theory. Now we would see how agency theory is directly correlated to goal congruence, right? Now first of all, agency theory views the firm as a chain of legal contracts. right? So when you look from an agency theory point of view, firm is nothing but it is basically a chain of legal contracts, right? So there are a lot of legal contracts that are happening. So agency theory views a firm as a chain of legal contracts. Managerial implications of this theory relates to the management functions of organization and control. So basically the managerial implications or the managerial tasks that are being undertaken under this theory, it basically pertains to the management functions as to how the management operates of what, of organization, and what kind of control they have. So that's what it talks about. Then it says it looks at the problems that can arise in a business relationship when one person delegates decision making authority to other. Now here the one person who will be delegating will be the principal, and the one who will be receiving will be the agent. So a company will be the person, or the principal rather, and the agent here in this case can be either the manager or the employee. So let's read this sentence once again, you will be able to understand in a better way. It looks at the problems that can arise in a business relationship, right? So basically agency theory concentrates on the problems that can arise in a business relationship when one person delegates decision making authority to another. It helps in understanding why managers do not always act in the best interest of the stakeholders, and why they may behave unethically at times and also illegally. As we already discussed, what exactly is agency theory? Basically, agents work on the behalf of principal, but there may be situations when agents may be looking at their own benefit. Simple example can be the cases of corruption. As in, you may be working in an organization, but when you see a self-interest, basically you may compromise on the betterment of the organization, and you would be looking at your own benefits. You may be taking some kind of bribe, or probably you can be taking some kind of materialistic favors. So that's what it talks about. So agency theory helps in understanding why managers do not always act in the best interest of stakeholders. So there may be cases when they may not be acting in the best interest of stakeholders, and why they may behave unethically at times and also illegally, right? So agency theory tries to decode it. Now as per this theory, employees including managers, whenever we say employees, it also includes managers, and rather they are the agents of the company, as individuals have their own objectives. That's very obvious. When you are working in an organization, you already have your own agenda, as in you need a promotion, or basically you need a better reward, right? So this theory says that employees including managers as individuals have their own objectives. There are also departmental objectives, that is the organization or the department specific objectives within a department of a business. Now for example, if you're working in a marketing or say IT section of the company, then in that case that department will also have a specific objectives. When these objectives culminate means when they come together, culminate means coming together, when objectives of both individual and the department comes together, objective of the organization is achieved as a whole, and there is said to be goal congruence. So in this case, the goal congruence talks about what? Goal congruence we have already defined. This also talks about the same thing. So in agency theory also it says that when the departmental objectives comes hand in hand with that of the individual objectives, in that case it is called as a goal congruence, right? Now firm needs to design work tasks, right? What firm needs to do to ensure agency theory is being attained to the fullest is basically they need to design various work tasks, incentives and employment contracts and other control mechanisms. For what? That can minimize opportunism by agents. So they have to have a clear SOP, that is standard operating procedure. So how they can do it? They can basically design various work tasks, incentives and employment contracts and other control mechanisms. So they need to monitor day in and day out, and just to ensure that agents are not taking undue advantage of the organization's various resources or any kind of wrongdoing, right? That minimize opportunism by the agents. So the false opportunities that they are trying to create, that there should be a check on the same. Such governance mechanisms are used to align incentives between principals and agents. So if you have such tasks in place, so these governance mechanisms can basically help you to align the incentives between the principals and agents, right? These mechanisms should be designed in such a way that they address two specific agency problems. Very, very important as far as agency theory is concerned. There are two specific agency problems that should be addressed by creating these mechanisms. What are these two objectives? One is called as adverse selection and the second one is called as a moral hazard, right? Okay, what do you mean by adverse selection? Now adverse selection says it is a situation that occurs when information asymmetry means uneven flow of information. That means everyone is not getting the same information everyone gets information what is required for them to get, right? So situation that occurs when information asymmetry increases the likelihood of selecting inferior alternatives. So if the information that is supposed to be reached to the person is not reaching perfectly, or there is not a symmetry means what? There is a non-alignment. Asymmetry means a non-alignment. Symmetry means in the same pattern. So when there is a situation when information asymmetry increases, that means information asymmetry actually goes up, it creates a likelihood of selecting inferior alternatives. That means a low quality alternative. So that is called as an adverse selection, right? Now on the other hand, what exactly is moral hazard? Moral hazard says that it is a situation in which information asymmetry, this is also a case wherein information asymmetry is involved, but what it does is it increases the incentive of one party to take undue risk or avoid other responsibilities. So what it does is basically information asymmetry can lead to giving an incentive of one party to take undue risk or avoid other responsibilities because of the cost that incur to the other party. Now the cost here incurring to the other party in a wrong way can be that to the organization. Simple example can be that of an insider trading. Now you may be having some information within the organization, and what you do is, because of that information, you just pass it on to your near and dear ones and you try to manipulate the stock price. So moral hazard can be one such instance of that. So try to understand basically the agency theory mechanism is created to address two specific problems. One problem is called as an adverse selection. The second one is called as a moral hazard. What adverse selection says is that there is an information asymmetry that increases the likelihood of selecting inferior alternatives. So when we are talking about adverse selection, we are talking about the selection of inferior alternatives, whereas moral hazard is again a similar situation wherein there is an information asymmetry, but what it does is it increases the incentive of one party. The first one increases the likelihood of selecting inferior alternatives. The second one, that is the moral hazard, talks about increasing the incentive of one party to take undue risk or avoid other responsibilities. Why? Because of the cost that incur to the other party. So basically trying to create a loss for the other party, right? So this is what is agency theory all about, right? So simply summarizing it, just have a look at this diagram at the time of your examination. If you just go through this, that should be more than sufficient. So it says, basically talks about 4 points. First one, it says implementing strict controls. So it says strict controls reduce risk in the low information asymmetry. Second one, it says aligning incentives with the contracts. So it says contracts align incentives to mitigate high information asymmetry. Mitigate is to reduce. So basically if you have proper contracts in place, that would rather reduce the high information asymmetry. The third one talks about is basic monitoring. So there has to be basic monitoring, and it says basic monitoring suffices with the minimal information asymmetry. And finally you talk about addressing moral hazard. So moral hazard is addressing moral hazard requires governance in high asymmetry, right? So if you just sum up with these 4 points, you should be able to recollect what exactly has been learnt in agency theory. So now you know exactly how agency theory, with the help of agency theory, how you can basically attain the goal congruence, right? Now we come to the other part of the chapter, or the next part of the chapter, and it talks about achieving goal congruence. So how do you achieve goal congruence? Now achievement of goal congruence and agency problem can be dealt at the same time, right? You can address both the issues, that is achievement of goal congruence and agency problem, at the same time. How? By providing managers with incentives which are directly correlated with the profits or the share price of the company. Fine. So the basic idea of attaining goal congruence can be done only through incentivizing the managers or the employees. How you can do that? Basically you can directly give them a share in the profit, or basically you give them the ESOPs, that is called as employee stock option exchanges, options, and that would, and as and when the prices go up, they automatically gets motivated, because there's nothing better than a financial reward. What is the second way of achieving goal congruence? Such problems usually arise when incentive or motivation present themselves to an agent not to act in the full best interest of a principal. So basically you should avoid such kind of problems, or rather it says how can you achieve goal congruence? Problems usually arise when incentive or motivation present themselves to an agent to act in the full best interest of a principal. So you have to ensure that there is a proper incentive or a motivation mechanism for the employees. Through regulations or incentivizing an agent to act in accordance with the principal's best interest, agency problems can be reduced. What is the other way of reducing it? basically you can have regulations in place, or you basically incentivize an agent to act in accordance with the principal's best interest. So you have to ensure, or other agent has to ensure that he's working or he's being incentivized with respect to the principal's best interest, and that would help you to reduce the agency problems, right? So simply looking at the diagram, how to achieve goal congruence and reduce agency problem, either by incentivizing the managers, and second thing is by implementing the regulations. So when you incentivize the managers, it says align manager incentives with company profits or share price to encourage actions in the principal's best interest. See, eventually net you have to ensure that agent is working in the best interest of the principals, right? There's no compromise on that. Second one is by implementing the regulations, that is use regulations to ensure agents act in accordance with the principal's interest. Fine. Moving on, what are the various ways by which agency problems can be dealt with? Now this is again how you can improve the goal congruence. So you can say that you pay or bonus shall be paid which are directly related to the size of profits, termed as profit related pay. So the first thing you need to know, or rather the way you can address the agency problems, is by giving a profit related pay. So here we talk about the pay or bonuses, and these should be directly in correlation with the profits of the size of the profits of the company. Then you reward the managers. You reward managers how? With shares, right? You issue various, or you give a lot of shares to the managers. In that case, how would you do that? You reward the managers with shares in public company. Managers are invited to subscribe for shares in the company at an attractive offer price. So basically you can give these shares at a nominal rates, rates lesser than what is there in the what is trading in the market as such, right? Then rewarding managers with share options. First is you can give them the shares directly, or you can give them the share options. Here employees are given a number of share options. Here you are not given the shares directly, you are just given an option, each of which gives the right after a certain date to subscribe for shares in a company at a fixed price. Value of an option will increase if the company is successful and its share price goes up. I guess when you go to the final, there is a subject called as corporate accounting where you will be talking about this. That is well, how do you deal with share options? There's a dedicated chapter for this. You usually get at least a 10 marks question in your final also. So once you go there, you would be able to understand. But as of now, just to see how to deal with agency problems, the three things that you can actually do is, first of all, you pay bonuses. You pay a certain amount or bonus based on the size of the profit. That is called as a profit related pay. Then you reward managers directly with the shares, right? Shares means a company, a public company which is listed. You invite the managers to subscribe to this, and as and when the share prices go up, they basically are benefited. Or what you can do is you can reward managers with something called as share options. Here what they do is employees are given a number of share options, each of which gives the right, it only gives a right, they don't give a share, they are given an option after a certain time to subscribe for shares in the company at a fixed price. Value of an option will increase if the company is successful and its share price goes up. Fine. So that's what is that are the various ways by which agency problems can be dealt with, right? So what are they? First is profit related pay, second one is share options, and third one is share rewards. Please remember this. There is a likelihood that a question on this may be asked, right? Now we come to the last part of the chapter, and this talks about the aspects of goal congruence, right? Some of the areas that have ability to create goal congruence. So what are the various things that can create goal congruence? First of all, first one is communication and understanding. Very basic. If you just read through it, you will be able to elaborate on your own. We'll just read it once. Communication and understanding, it says communication of different goals can occur through informal channels, right? So that involves what? Meetings and face-to-face interactions, or through formal channels including budget and other financial documents. So communication can happen through what? Various informal channels involving meetings and face-to-face interactions, or through formal channels through including budget and other financial documents. Even if communication is well executed, it might be perceived in different ways. So you may be communicating properly, but the perception of that can be different. So organization therefore should incorporate the goals in a good manner to avoid that employees feel inability to achieve them. So communication should be made in such a way that basically employees feel that they have the ability to achieve them. Fine. Second one is by creating direction. Now performance management and goals facilitate efficient communication about what managers want their subordinates to focus on. So if your communication is good, that would help the company wherein the managers would be able to tell their subordinates what exactly to concentrate on or what their focus should be. Now, providing clear information and direction, employees can understand what is expected of them. So if communication is proper, they would know what exactly to achieve, how to perform adequately, right? What should be their task and how they should undertake it, and how to contribute effectively to achieve the organizational goals. Focus should be on increasing the employees' understanding of the strategic objectives as well as the organizational value drivers. So two things that should be concentrated by the organization for employees to understand is, first of all, how do they understand the strategic objectives and organization value drivers, right? So first thing we learned about is communication understanding. Second thing is we learned about how to create direction. The third one is motivation, right? So it says problems of motivation can exist in spite of employees having knowledge of the work, since employees can perform in their own self-interest instead of organization-based interest. So where can motivation take a hit? You may be communicating in a right way, but if employee try to place their own interest above the organization interest, and there the problem begins. So that issue has to be addressed. Now, one of the reasons of employees demotivation and managers is dislike for the work allocated. So you have to ensure that you allocate the work to the employees as per their skill set, right? Sometimes they may not be liking it, and if that is being imposed or they are being forced to do that, there is a highly likelihood that they may not perform up to the mark. So that needs to be taken care of. While some may feel motivated for recognition and appraisals, others may feel motivated because of commitment and responsibility without any required payoff. So it's not that everyone is too much happy with the recognition and appraisals. You may have heard many people saying that I'm not happy with the work that's been allocated for me, allocated to me. So in that case, that also can take a hit on the motivation. So for everyone, it may not be recognition and appraisal. It may also depend on the nature of work that's being delegated to them. So you have to make sure that proper work as per their skill set and as per their satisfaction, the work is being allocated to them. Higher the employee motivation, better the goal congruence. That is but obvious. Then the fourth one we talk about is incentives. That's pretty obvious. Individuals tends to perform better when they are rewarded. Rewards and compensation should create goal congruence between individuals and organizational goals by inspiring individuals by providing incentives as rewards are related to increased efforts. So higher the rewards, the higher the efforts. Fine. And finally, connection. So what does connection talks about? It says important to create connection between goals, performance measures and incentives. So three things have to come in line. One is goal. Second one is what? Second one is you talk about the performance measure. And third one is what? Third one is incentive. So your goals, performance measure and incentive should go hand in hand. In order to align employees' self-interest and overall organizational objectives, it is necessary to relate incentives with the performance. So your incentives, something you would have heard of what is called as a variable pay, right? So generally you would have seen people have fixed pay, but they also get a variable pay because their performance is good. So you get a higher bonus if you are able to perform better than what the benchmark has been set up for you, right? So that's what is connection. So there has to be connection between goal, your performance measure and incentive. It says in order to align employees' self-interest and organizational objectives, it is necessary to relate incentives with the performance. So your incentives should have a direct correlation with the way you are performing, right? So with this we finish aspects of goal congruence. That is some of the areas that have the ability to create goal congruence. Let's look at this diagram and we will be able to summarize this. First of all, communication. It talks about effective communication ensured shared understanding of goals. Second one is motivation. It says high motivation drives employees to align with the organization goals. Then you talk about the connection. It says linking goals, performance and incentive fosters alignment. Then you talk about direction. It says clear direction aligns employee efforts with the organizational objectives. And finally you talk about incentives. Rewards and incentives align individual and organization interest, right? I guess you are able to understand the chapter. With this we finish module 10, and thereafter we'll be starting with module 11. We'll try to finish it off as soon as possible, and with that we will be finishing complete strategic management, right? So thank you for joining and keep learning, and hope to see you soon with the next video. Bye bye.